24 and you're poised for success. Why? Because you've established your why. This isn't just a whim or a hobby. It's the passion that propels you forward, the core of your ambition. Next, you assess your current position. Where do you stand? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Honesty is key here. Now, envisage your destination. What do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Set those goals. Make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. With your destination locked, it's time to map out your plan. Break down your goals into manageable steps, then start stepping. Remember, action without reflection is aimless. Record your results, analyze your performance, and adjust your plan accordingly. The path to success in 2024 isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Take meaningful action, keep your eye on the prize, and continually strive for improvement. Here's to a successful 2024.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Great to be here. And welcome to another day, another Thursday morning after Valentine's Day. So I hope you all had a fantastic Valentine's Day and that you all had a wonderful time with your spouses. So anyway, today what we're going to be doing is continuing the discussion. Now, last week we spoke about the art of selfless giving and basically embracing love, acceptance, and respect. And we spoke about 5 points, being recognizing your emotional drivers, the paradox of giving, delayed gratification in feedback, and self-reflection on expectations. And then we looked at empathy and focus on others. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to continue this conversation and we're going to be discussing a little bit more about cultivating compassion, understanding others, and enhancing your own personal growth. So today with me, I have Glen Leece-Jones and Wilhelm Lombard. Glen Leece-Jones is a Map4Life coach, and he'll be talking about this subject from a Map4Life point of view. And then we've got Wilhelm Lombard. Wilhelm Lombard is a life energy coach. He helps you to with your performance in every respect. So he'll be talking from an energy life point of view. So welcome. Glen, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure, thanks, David. Appreciate it, man. Looking forward to this conversation. I think, as mentioned, I use a tool called Map4Life. It's basically in over 94 countries worldwide already, and been running for about 24 years already throughout South Africa and across the world. And I'm really passionate about using that tool and helping people to actually discover their purpose and stepping into their destiny. So, yeah, we'll look forward to this conversation today. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, Glen. Good to have you here today. And Wilhelm, would you like to introduce yourself? Over to you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. We got a little bit of technical problems today, but yeah, it's nice to be here with you guys. My name is Wilhelm Lombard. I'm a life energy coach. Now, the reason why I think about life energy is, you know, energy is everything. If you don't have energy, you can't really perform. So it's so important to have energy in your energy tank. And that's how I look at people. Different energy tanks, your spiritual, your emotional, your physical, social, all those tanks should be activated to be the best version of yourself. And that's me. So let's see what will happen today.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Wilhelm, and thanks, Glen. So one of the things that I found in life is when I was younger, you know, it was all about me. And, you know, what my needs were, what my wants were. And I went through life very much like that. So, you know, it was always like, you know, I want this. And I would talk to people and, you know, or I would perhaps go to a business meeting and straight away I'll start telling them about who I am and what I want and telling them about my business. And I found that I just wasn't actually getting any leads. And people would listen in, they would get bored. And then guess what? I wouldn't hear from them again. And I phone them up and say, you know, I spoke to you about this. Are you interested? And I could hear that they weren't interested. And you know, it was a bit of a thing for me to try and like understand, what am I doing wrong what am I doing wrong? It's not getting this through. I tell people about my business. I tell them what I do, but nothing comes through. So then one day I met someone and he said, it's not just about you, it's about the other person. And I was like, what do you mean? So I said, well, what about actually asking them about their business? And I thought, okay, but I don't want to know about their business. I want to tell them about my business. They said, no, ask them about them, because people like talking about themselves, like you like talking about yourself and what you do. So find out about what they want and what they do and be interested in them, and they will suddenly be interested in you. Gee, this is a good idea. So anyway, I went and tried it. And by trying this idea, I suddenly found that people were actually interested. And they, I'd like be very interested in what they wanted to do, or what they did about their business. I'd say, hi, Joe, I'd love to find out a little bit more about your business. Can you please help me with that? And he would, or that person would then tell me all about their business, and I'd listen attentively. And by listening to them, I suddenly started to pick up ideas and thoughts about maybe how I could help them. And I suddenly realized that by actually considering their needs and understanding from their point of view, I was actually now getting through to them. And they were starting to also be interested in what I had to offer them. And it just changed my life totally. So this is something I'd like us to discuss as our first point this morning. And I'm going to ask Glenn to actually introduce this whole thing about empathetic allowances, making considerations for others, their personal struggles, their histories, and their needs. Over to you, Glenn.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it, man. It's interesting, you started off the conversation by saying that when you were younger, you were thinking a lot about yourself. The interesting thing for me is that I think we live in a society today that is so me-focused, extremely self-centered. And I'm generalizing, but if you just take this little tool and all about the selfie, it's a major problem. It really is, because everyone is so self-centered about themselves and what they're doing. If you look at Facebook and all kinds of things like this, all the information that's going on social media, it's quite fascinating to me how people are really so focused on themselves all the time, inwardly all the time. And we should actually be thinking just the opposite. We should be thinking outwardly, exactly what you explained about, finding out what the other person's business is about, and finding out what their needs are, etc. And when you talk about this concept of making considerations for others' struggles and histories, it actually always reminds me of a story that I heard one day about, and a true story, about a gentleman sitting on a train. And this gentleman was very wealthy, very well-to-do, very upright man, reading his newspaper, and the gentleman came walking in with 4 children, sat down in the cubicle. And these kids started going crazy. I mean, they were jumping up and down, they were pulling things, they were sliding the window up and down. And eventually, after about 20 minutes, this gentleman looked at him and said to him, with all respect, you really need to take control of your children. This is absolutely nonsense. They should be disciplined. And the chap looked at him and with a sad look on his face, he said, I'm really sorry, sir, but they're not my children. Unfortunately, I've just taken them on to help them out because their parents have just been killed. They've witnessed this, and I really believe they're in shock at the moment. And I think for that gentleman, it brings a complete different perception in terms of those kids' situation. So what am I trying to say over here? I think so often we look at people and we judge people very, very quickly as a result of the so-called self-centered attitude. And we shouldn't be doing that. We should be finding out more about them, finding out more about their situation, and really seeking first to understand what the situation is with them before we start judging and start making accusations or anything to that effect. I think it is such an important aspect. And I think in leadership as well, it comes across so strongly. So oftentimes I've coached businesses and people within business concepts and leadership people in CEO positions. And again, very self-centered. This is my goal. This is the vision. You don't like it, leave it, get out of here. Don't need you, mother. That kind of attitude comes across so strongly all the time, and it's really the wrong way to do it. You are not going to build a good, strong company with a good, strong team if you continue to do that type of thing. I can talk all day long about this. It's really a passion for me. As far as Map4Life is concerned, we actually have accountability partners, and we actually try and support each other like that. So once again, it's not about pointing fingers, it's about being accountable to each other and listening and helping each other out. And we work through what we call a Map Cafe over 12 weeks. We run through this process. So it's a very helpful tool to be able to use that. Enough for me for now. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much for that. Absolutely. I love that story about the gentleman on the train. Actually, if I was the man asking and saying, please keep your children quiet, I would have actually been quite taken back. I must say, it would have changed my whole perspective. So think about that story. I think it's a very powerful one. Thank you very much, Glenn. Wilhelm, let's hear it from a life energy point of view. You know, basically making allowances for others and understanding them and trying to understand them. Over to you, Wilhelm.
Thank you, David. Yeah, you know, I didn't hear anything from you guys on that side, actually. So I got this sound problems. But in any case, let's try to say something about this. Now, when I think about compassion in the workplace, and I really have compassion for leaders, because people don't care much about leaders. They need to be compassionate with us or the workers. And it's so important to understand them as well. You know, leaders, if they are compassionate, of course, they enhance this dynamics in their workplace. So it's wonderful if they do that. And they definitely improve their decision-making skills because of getting the people all involved, and the team dynamics is wonderful, and everything is just happening. The problem is that when leaders lack energy, they battle with this decision fatigue story. Now they just can't. There's just too much decisions to make, and that's very difficult for them. They are emotionally exhausted because of all the conflicts and everything they need to handle in their workplace. So the pressure is on nowadays. There's lots of stress that people have. They sit with this overloading schedule, and there's just too much to do, so much to do that there's no room for them to have their own breaks and to fill their own energy tank. So compassion for leaders that are not so compassionate with their teams. They lack personal time to just fill up their tanks. They battle with the team dynamics nowadays because lots of other people also lack energy. They are all sort of on the road of possible burnout because life is not so easy nowadays. So that's the reality that we actually sit with. And with that in mind, it have an impact on the compassion leaders need to have for their teams. And I really think we need to help leaders to fill up their energy tanks, to get the balance back in their life. Now, balance is a never-ending story. You never get your balance. You just keep on balancing and trying to handle all the things. But the main idea is to reduce your stress, to handle stress effectively. And if one can do that, you will be able to open up your energy tanks so that your energy can flow, so that you will be much better in your communication, your communication skills, yes, the way you have compassion with other people. And if you can do that, it can really make a difference in the workplace as such. Then people feel, but listen, you care for them, you help to develop them, they are part of your decision-making process, and the weight is so much lighter on your own shoulders as a leader if you have that compassion. But it's very difficult, as I said, if you are in survival mode the whole time, trying to just keep this business going, and then it's very difficult to help people. And that's one of the things that we are going to chat about also when we get together on the 24th of February, where we really try to equip our leaders, people, to be able to fill up their own energy tanks so that they can have the compassion to be with other people and to energize them. Because if you don't lack energy, it's very difficult to send out energy if there's no energy in your tank. So that's a very, very important thing that we need to take care of, especially today where the pressure is on, economics is not well, the politics is a tough situation. There's so many things that drain our energies, and that's why it's so important to really work on that as well.
Wow, thank you so much, Glenn and Wilhelm. That was, I must say, talking about the 24th of February, what we're doing is we're actually having a workshop. It's going to be at the Casablanca Manor. It's a wedding venue. It's near Rayton, but it's a fantastic place, a beautiful venue. The food's absolutely outstanding. But what we're going to do during that day is we're going to actually help you to gain focus for 2024. And a lot of us, including myself, have gone along and made all these New Year's resolutions. End of 2023, you say, okay, this year, this coming year, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. This is my aim. And the biggest problem that we have is that by 15th of January, life hits us hard. And we get back into our normal routine, and some of those intentions that we have, all those New Year's resolutions go out the window. And you forget, you say, oh, well, okay, maybe next month, or I'll start again, or whatever you might say, and you just don't get it done. And by the end of 2024, you're in the same place, same rut that you were at the end of 2023. So the aim of this workshop is to give you the tools so that you can actually really put in place a system to actually enhance your 2024 and actually achieve those New Year's resolutions that you made, and to achieve other goals that you may have. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion. We're going to be talking to you and providing you with a number of tools, not just from a business point of view, but also from a Map4Life point of view, and as well as an energy point of view, because we firmly believe that all these three things come together in actually giving us a overall mechanism to actually achieve our goals. So our next subject today is called fostering compassion. Now, the big thing here is to really understand where someone else is, what their needs are, so that you can actually act accordingly. Now, for example, yesterday I was at a function, the 𝗧cie𝗽𝗶𝗰 here in Pretoria. It's I think a fortnightly event that they host. It's a great networking club. If those of you who don't know about it and would like to join that, it is available. It's in Pretoria, in Centurion area. And the person that I was with, very, very dear friend of mine and a partner of my life, she fell. And she actually, first of all, she fell onto the ground. She hurt her finger. And suddenly her needs changed. Her needs were initially to be there to actually network, to meet other people. And now her needs changed totally to having a really, first of all, having a fall, first of all, being embarrassed, and secondly, having a really sore finger. And obviously it started to bleed, and we needed her whole needs, everything about what was happening with her changed. And obviously, if I had been there and I wanted to network, which was the aim, and I continued to do that, I wouldn't have actually understood her needs. So my needs changed as well. My whole attitude towards her changed, and the attitude towards what she needed changed. I had to now deal with her finger, make sure that she was okay, be compassionate to her, and have total understanding of what her needs were. Go and put some ice on her finger, get a bandage, stop the bleeding, and all those things. Now, why am I telling you this? Because people's needs change in an instant. And you need to understand what they are so that you can actually deal with them in a really good way and be there for them. And this is something that we need to do in every respect when we're dealing with people, from a business point of view, from a personal point of view, from a personal relationship point of view, from our children point of view. We need to understand where they sit at any point in time. Wilhelm, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about this and from an energy life point of view of actually being able to foster compassion for a person from a life energy point of view. Back to you, Wilhelm.
Yeah, thank you, David. You know, as I said, if you lack energy yourself, while I was listening to your story, I could hear your energy was actually down because of this incident that happened, because it really drained your energy. I mean, and that's the thing of life. There are so many things that we are bombarded with during life, during our days. You know, I always say that we sit with an old operating system. We sit with an operating system where we get up in the morning, you walk out there, try to find some food, and then every now and then, maybe once a week, there's a tiger jumping out of the bush, and then you need to respond in a fight or flight way. Now, so you either fight or you run, and within in 60 seconds, it's over and done with. And then maybe next week again, there's again something that happened. Now that was quite life-threatening, and it was a serious matter, you know, to fight the tiger. But we sit with the same operating system. Today, we are bombarded by lots of stressors. Now, the traffic, that incident that happened with you guys last night, all those things are stressors, and we actually react the same way, in a fight or flight way. Adrenaline is secreted, your heartbeat goes up, blood flows from the organs to the muscles to be able to run or fight, and high blood pressure and cholesterol and all those things are released in your system. And then you just sit there in your car maybe, or in your office, or in what you can't fight. You can't really do something about it. And that drains a lot of our energy. And that's why stress is so bad for you, because of all the things that happen. And we constantly sit with high blood pressure and all those things. Now, as I said, the moment when your energy is drained, it's very difficult to be joyful, to be passionate, to have compassion, to be patient, because all these things are just stretching you. And we need to become aware of those things in the first place. And I must say, nowadays, people they are not aware of it anymore. We sort of, I always say, we like that frog in the hot water, and we sort of are content with what's going on now. And before we know it, the bubbles comes up, and we are in this burnout, or really cooked water, sort of like that frog. So, and that's why people are, in Afrikaans we say, hulle word afgestomp. They are not sharp anymore. They are not living in the moment anymore. You just survive. And we are going to discuss this as well, to help you to just understand your energy, because as I said at the beginning, energy is everything. If you don't have the energy, you can't do anything. It's almost like having this beautiful car, 4x4, capable of doing whatever you want, but if there's no petrol in the tank, you will just sit in the car and look good. But that's the thing. We need to understand this. And energy is the problem that we sit with nowadays. We lack energy in everything, and it influences our thinking skills, our problem solving skills, and leaders are actually falling into the trap of just managing crises the whole time. Okay, I can talk a lot about this whole energy thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that story about, if you've got a 4x4 and then fantastic vehicle and you've got no fuel in it, you're not going anywhere. It's actually useless. So I agree with that totally, Wilhelm. Last night after that event, it drained my energy. It certainly drained her energy. And her focus was no longer on actually networking, for that evening because of the incident that happened. But being compassionate, you understand that, and that's where the power comes in. Glenn, how about from your side? What are your thoughts on the subject? Over to you.
Thanks again, David. Thanks for letting me. You spoke about using understanding to fuel your compassionate action towards others. And the minute I think of that word understanding, I'm always reminded of Stephen Covey and his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits is obviously seek first to understand, then be understood. It is, to me, it's such an important aspect. And we can use it in business, we can use it in our personal lives, etc. Let's take it from a business perspective and look at leadership, whether it's management, whether it's CEO of a company or the business owner, whatever it might be. Andy Stanley talks about this in terms of leadership, and he says leaders should do less but accomplish more. And in fact, if they do less, they will accomplish more. And it seems like an oxymoron. It seems like, but it just doesn't make sense. But that's exactly what it's about. I think as leaders and people in business, we tend to think we need to do everything. And it's actually just the opposite. We should actually be empowering our people, our staff, to actually get them to do the things that they're good at and leave it up to them and delegate to them. And the things that we as leaders do well, stick to that and trust in our staff and members and things. And as a result of that, we can actually create this understanding between each other that there's an empowerment situation here. We're going to give this to you and go for it and do it and do the best that you can. I think there's such a different dynamic in terms of that versus trying to push things down your throat and force things and really be autocratic about things. I think that'll bring a lot of understanding as well in terms of the relationships between your staff, management, etc. On the other side of the scale, I actually heard John Maxwell talk about something the other day on the radio, and it was quite fascinating. He said something to the effect of, I want to actually be the last person to know about the problems in the company. And I thought to myself, whoa, that's a bit of a strange statement. But then he explained himself, and I think it goes to that understanding again, because he understands how things work in terms of that dynamic of business and that type of thing. Because ultimately what he's saying is this: if there's a problem that arises within the company, the person at the lowest part of the business should be able to sort that out as quickly as possible, that it doesn't go up to the top. You understand what I'm getting at? So in any department, whatever the department is, the person that's at the bottom of that department should actually be able to solve that problem as quickly as possible and get rid of it and move it off. It shouldn't even come up to him. John Maxwell, as a leader in that company, shouldn't even be thinking about it. In fact, when he does finally hear about it, it's already solved. It's not an issue any longer. That's actually how it should be. Again, it comes down to empowering people to that extent that they can actually take that situation and take those issues and actually work through it and say, yes, I am capable of doing this. I am wise enough, and I have the wisdom and the knowledge and the ability to be able to do these things and the potential to do these things. It does create an understanding between management and leadership, as well as your staff members and your team, to go, I have respect and I respect them in both situations, and it does create an understanding and a fostering of a situation of, hey, wow, this really works for me and I can actually do this correctly. So let me go ahead and do it. On the other side of the scale, if we don't have that understanding, we just keep on complaining and moaning all the time, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I was coaching a company last year, and it fascinated me that every single time one little thing went wrong, management and the owner would simply say things like, just fire the person, just get rid of them, fire them. And it absolutely shocked me. I could not understand that. There's that word understanding again. But the fact of the matter is that we should be actually supporting, helping people, which comes back to that first point about having compassion for people and understanding where they're going through and what they're doing. Rather take that person and put them in another position where they have passion and desire to do it and upskill them to actually get that right. But I think that's taken it to the next level in indication for the next question you're talking about. Let me stop over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. No, one of the things that when I was listening to what you were saying, there's a process that we'll be teaching you called listening to understand. And it's a dialogue process. And, you know, on the 24th, we'll actually teach you this process. It's a very, very powerful process, which you can use to actually really get to understand the other person and let the other person actually hear you and actually hear that what you're saying is actually correct. It's a very powerful process. So I think that brings us to the next subject, which is skill development for service. You know, identifying and enhancing your own skills so that you can serve others more effectively. And, you know, I'll come back to that whole thing, you know, which I spoke about in the beginning. When, you know, initially when I was trying to get business, I would go out there and I'd start trying to sell immediately to the person. You know, hi, what's your name? Oh, it's Peter. Hi, Peter. You know, I'm in this business and this is what I do. And it didn't work. So the fact is that there are skills out there. It's not a natural thing that you have, you know, that comes to you and so on. You have to actually learn these skills. And once you've learned them, they become very powerful. And, you know, you then start to actually take those skills and you can apply them in your business, and you'll find that you'll start actually getting far more leads, you'll get more business, you'll get more people to understand who you are and what you're doing. And, you know, I'm part of a group called Friday Club, you know, and there's a gentleman called Alan Hammond. He's a founder of that group. And, you know, every time we meet up with him, he basically says a few things. And one of the things that he does say to us, you know, go along and make a call and say, hi Joe, I met you at this networking group. I'd really like to meet up with you and find out more about your business. The likelihood of him saying, yes, I'd like to have a meeting with you is extremely high. However, if you do the opposite, which would be, hi Joe, my name was David. I met you at this networking group. I'd like to tell you about my business. It's two totally different methodologies. And by just applying the first one, you will actually find that you'll suddenly be far more successful. And these are the type of skills that we'll be talking about at the event on the 24th. So come and join us then. And, you know, I think from a Map4Life point of view, I mean, one of the things that I found very effective with Map4Life, I'm using it. I've got my Map4Life diary here. As you can see there it is. And I've really planned out, you know, well advanced in my life. You can see there's some of my writing there. And, you know, this is one of the things, this is a skill that one needs to learn and apply. You know, I don't know if you know about the bank code. It's a methodology that we use. It's, you know, B for blue, A for action, N for nurture, and K for knowledge. And generally, the whole way bank code works is that you're a combo of two of those elements. Now, I'm very action-orientated, which is red, by the way. That's why I'm wearing a red T-shirt. I also got this for Valentine's Day. It's if I showed it to you, you'll be quite surprised. It's quite lekker. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that when you know the type of personality you are, and you understand who you are, and you can then start to apply certain methodologies. Now, the blueprint, and this is not about Bank4Life, we're not talking about that here, but the blueprint is very much methodical, right? Like Map4Life. So for me, it's not a normal thing to do. But by learning the skill of how to apply Map4Life, I found that my effectiveness has actually increased dramatically. And I can now see, you know, I can see my whole week on one page. what I'm going to do, and I can say, okay, there are gaps, and I need to fill those gaps, etc., etc. So this is something that Glen teaches, and I must say it's really, really good. And it's one of the things we're going to be talking about on the 24th at the workshop. So I'd like Glen maybe just to talk about this, and it's really about skill development for service and understanding how you can develop those skills to serve others more effectively, but at the end of the day, to actually serve yourself. Over to you, Glen.
Thank you, David. And just please excuse the noise in the background. I've unfortunately just had a lot of people coming into the restaurant now, so there might be a lot of noise. Okay, Map4Life. It's so interesting. When I first did the Map4Life course, I literally took that book and plunked it on the shelf, and it lay there for a year. I really thought that it was just another course, another goal-setting module, but I didn't fully understand it. And it was only when I went through a mastery course that I fully grasped the ideas and concepts and methodology behind it, and I started applying it in my life. It really started working effectively for me. And so I've been running that for the past probably about 13 years now. So it really does work very well. I so apologize for all this noise. We'll obviously be talking on the 25th, about the Map4Life process and using specific portions of Map4Life, and specifically running through that concept of unlocking the power of vision. Such an important aspect that. But I want to talk very quickly, again, from a business perspective, as far as this skills and skill development for service is concerned. I think oftentimes, we want to appoint people that have the skill and knowledge already, and that's wonderful, that's great, we can do that. I actually look at it from a different perspective. Do you know that the word employer and employee, if you take the word ploy, P-L-O-Y, you take that out of that word employer, employee, it actually means to scheme or hold fast. Interesting. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I'm going to chat about that on the day. Come to the meeting, you've got to understand what that's about. I prefer the word deploy, okay? And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to have a business and I want to employ a team of people, I want to employ people and bring them on board as part of my team, I want to actually bring someone on board that has the same passion and desire as me, very similar vision and gifts and talents. Because if I do that, I'll bring them on board, I never have to ask them to work. They will be there even before me in the morning to do the job, because it's their passion and desire. Okay. Then I want to actually upskill them to the extent that they're even better than me. And I know that sounds really crazy to a lot of people, because you think, but then they're going to take over the job. No, you have to actually almost get them to the point where they actually take over the position. Ultimately, that's what you want to do. You want to get people to run the business for you. So think of it from that perspective. It's a really different thing that could be quite controversial to some people, but that's the concept behind it. That's how we should be actually dealing with people. And rather upskill someone, if I can upskill someone to that level and get them to actually run it on their own, fantastic. I would rather have that than someone coming in with skill and knowledge, with an attitude of, I know more than you, so I'm going to do what I want to do. It's never going to work. And unfortunately, that's the majority of the time what takes place in business as well. Again, I can talk so much around these concepts, but let me stop over there. You've got to be there on the day. 24th, Casablanca. Join us that day. We're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be very practical, and we're going to have some good food as well, good coffee, good muffins. You've got to be there. Thanks, David. Thanks for that.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Glen. There's a bit of noise there, so forgive us. Today we've got a few technical hitches, but you know what? We work through them, and that's the whole process. We don't let these things stop us. So if we are here to deliver a message to you and to give you some help and some advice and to improve your life. That's what we're here to do. That's our mission. And so if you can bear with us, we will deliver what we can with the constraints that we have. So let's talk to Wilhelm. Wilhelm, are you available? Let's talk to Wilhelm and find out from Wilhelm what, from his point of view, of actually learning certain skills to enhance your ability to understand others and also to add value to not only their lives, but to your life. Over to you, Wilhelm.
Thank you, David. Yeah, the biggest problem that we battle with is communication. I mean, marriages, the big problem, communication, relationships, work relationships. And the thing is, there's a certain way to communicate, and we all know the 2 ears thing in the one mouth. You've mentioned the fact that you need to listen more to what other people have to say than to talk. But if the stress is on, then there's no time for listening. And people often rather just talk and shout. And the moment when you do that and there's no compassion in your voice, then people only hear a little bit because they are stressed as well. And their ears are closed as well. The moment when you are under pressure or in that fight or flight mode, as I've mentioned before, you can't think clearly, you can't hear very well. You know, it's all depending on your brain dominance profile, but certain parts of your brain literally switch off. And that's the main reason why we battle with communication. So to be able to communicate better, you need to stay calm. You need to work on that. You need to reprogram yourself. Then you can hear better. Then then you have the capability of listening and hear things that people don't even say. And that's very powerful. So you can actually hear between the lines. And often when I really do this, I often can, when people talk to me and then I reflect back and I say, okay, what I hear you say is this. And then they often say, wow, yeah, that's actually what I've meant. And that is, a leader should have that capability. But as I've mentioned earlier, because of all these pressures that are on and the leaders that are bombarded with all these stresses, it's very difficult for them to be compassionate listeners and to be effective listeners and to communicate effectively. So I think if one can get that thing right, the world will change, because we often don't hear what is really said and we just jump to conclusions. You know, in sales, for instance, you often want to, you mentioned the fact that why it is so difficult to just listen to other people, what they want to say, and why are you always trying to sell your product? And the reason for that is we are under severe stress and I need to make money. I always talk about the green dragon eyes. When you sit with green dragon eyes there and you want to sell your product because you need some money, people feel that. They get the vibe from your heart, the energy that you just want to sell them something. And then they immediately block you. But if you can get into sync with them and that's by listening, that's by really be happy with the moment that you are in, live in that moment, listen what the person say, be calm, and wait for the opportunity when it comes to you, when it's your turn to speak. Now, you know, if I give you a chance to speak to me, you actually feel obligated to give me a chance as well. And then it's a relaxed atmosphere. But if I force you and I want to sell you something or tell you what you have to do, then I push back because I don't want to hear that. It's like, and I always tell leaders, don't push your people, because the moment when I push you, as you sit there in your chairs, if I was there with you guys and I push you from the chair, there will be a time that you start to push back, because otherwise you will fall from the chair. And how do we push back? Sometimes it's by doing as little as possible just to stay out of trouble in the workplace now. And then you lack that energy of your people that's in your team that should be together with you to score the tries. But now they push back, they lack energy. And that's why businesses often fail, because there's no energy. There's a burnout company culture. You know, each and every person sits with their own problems in life, their own pressures, school fees, kids, whatever you want to call it. So we need to understand that all those people got their own energy drains. So we need to help them to be more powerful, more energy in the tank, that 4x4s that they are, that capability that they are, to unlock that potential. The moment when you do that, the leaders start to relax much more, lots less stress, and more positive input and compassion with a group of people or his team. And it's sort of a catch-22 situation. You know, we are all sort of running on the treadmill and getting nowhere, busy, 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 but not getting anywhere. And the big problem that we sit with today is information. We are flooded by information, and all those things. It's like advertising boards on the road. They all need your energy. They drain your energy. And we are flooded with all the stuff. And that's why it's very difficult to focus and to be the best leader that you can be if we don't work on our operating system.
Well, thank you so much, Wilhelm. Yeah, I'm very interesting. You know, one of the things that comes to mind when you're talking now is perceived ideas that you have already got in your brain. And this is actually not a really good thing that one has, because, you know, you could have your own perceived idea, and when listening to somebody, and that you really start to create judgments about whatever they're saying based on your perceived ideas. And they might be coming from a totally different angle or totally different point of view, but because of your the stories that you've told yourself, your perceived ideas, you actually are already creating judgments, a response to them before they've even completed their conversation. And obviously this doesn't lead to a very good communication between the two of you, and actually could actually create conflict. Now, one of the things that perceived ideas do have, and that is that they actually affect your feelings. There are certain things that are out there that you will actually affect your emotions. And as soon as you hear a certain word or a certain phrase, you actually will be triggered. And the question is, do you know what these triggers are? Do you know what will actually trigger you to actually go into a certain judgment of whatever the conversation is? So these are things that one needs to learn. And actually, you know, one of the most important aspects of actually getting yourself into a space of actually being in a space to listen, to understand, is to actually know yourself. Because if you know yourself, you'll understand what the triggers are, what those triggers are, and what perceived ideas you've really created in your mind. I mean, I could give you some examples, you know. For example, I'll give you an idea with my sister. My sister is very scared of water, okay? She doesn't like to go and swim. She doesn't like to go into the sea. Now, she's got a perceived idea that there's something in the water. It's like, you know, perhaps when she was younger, she saw Jaws. I'm sure a lot of us who are younger did see Jaws, the movie. And now suddenly, okay, all right, in the sea, there are sharks, and therefore I don't want to go and swim in the sea because of the sharks. And sharks kill people. So those are perceived ideas that you have. And in reality, it's not the case. There's lots of oceans where there are no sharks. There's lots of places where sharks actually are scared of humans and they run away, you know. But now you've created this generalistic term that there's sharks in the sea, and therefore you don't want to go and swim in the sea. So you actually now have that perceived idea in your mind. So if someone says to you, come, let's go and swim in the sea, your automatic reaction is no, you don't want to, because of that perceived idea. that's a silly example, but it gives you an understanding of actually knowing yourself and knowing what stories you've actually taken on, and are you prepared to improve your life by actually understanding what those stories are that you have told yourself, and to actually understand which ones actually are true or not true. So this is a process that one has to go through. But you know, when in a conversation, now that your story was a small story and just on the side, but there are certain things that people might start talking about. Maybe a political issue they might talk about, or mention a certain political figure, and suddenly you start taking on your own perceived ideas of those and actually portray that onto the other person. Whereas the other person might be talking about something totally different, and you haven't actually even let them have a chance to actually have a discussion with you about whatever they want to say, and you've already judged them and judged the conversation. So this brings us to the next part, educational enrichment. Understanding who you are, taking time to understand what stories you've already told yourself, and understand how you can become more effective in listening and communication and having compassion for others. And this will actually lead you to a much better life if you do this. I'm going to pass on to Glenn. I'm hoping those people in the restaurant have departed and that won't be so much noisy. Glenn, would you like to? We've got 8 minutes left, so let's just do a quick wrap up and then and finish on the hour. Over to you, Glenn.
Great, thanks, David. You know, it's interesting when you're talking about your sister and the sharks. You do realize, of course, I've been in pool water where there's no sharks, but I've been bitten by a water spider. So I understand why she's so concerned. No, I'm only joking. You know, the minute I start talking about education enrichment, I immediately think of Jim Rohn, and he said something very interesting, very profound. It's in one of his speeches that he gives, and it's a brilliant speech, by the way. He talks about most people will get a formal education, and with a formal education, you get a job. However, self-education will make you wealthy, and it's such an important and profound aspect that there is so much information that we can gather from the internet and from all around and from people around us, and we need to be doing that on a daily basis. Instead of just taking your school education, which is great, it's fine, but just taking school education, accepting that as the norm, and then going into varsity, etc. There is so much more to that. I think we've all heard of the man Rich Dad, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, okay, and the whole concept behind that. It's really about applying principles and understanding principles and gaining information from people that are in leadership positions, etc., and people that have been successful, versus just going to get a formal education. Not that I'm saying a formal education is wrong, but there's way more to it than that. I think one of the biggest challenges with most people is they say, well, I don't have time to do that. I've gone and studied and I'm now in a job and I don't have time to do anything else. Well, I think that's the very reason why we have a Map4Life. The Map4Life will actually help you and assist you in terms of putting habits in place to actually allow you to do that. For me, it's about consistency. You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours studying and doing all these things. It's about making small incremental changes, but doing it consistently over a period of time. And it's fascinating what that can actually do and change for you over a period of time. So really, that's about for me. I can talk so much more about this, but we're running out of time now. So I want to give Wilhelm also a chance, and then David can wrap up for us. Thanks so much. Great to chat.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you so much. Wilhelm, would you like to do a quick wrap up from your side, and or just maybe speak a little bit about educational enrichment from Energy Life point of view?
Yeah, thank you, David. Just by listening to your story, your shark story, I'm in Pretoria, so I don't get too much time to spend at the sea, but I'm also a little bit afraid of the sharks. But now I got another perception, seeing that sharks, you talk about they run away. So I see the shark in my mind's eye, picture running, and he's running away. You just see this, and he's running. So I'm not afraid anymore. When I go back to the sea, I just see the picture of running sharks. But okay, so, and that's education in a sense. it's to understand life better. Now, I think people got the skills and the knowledge to do their work. Usually, they get the training, they are well educated and all those things. Usually, not always, but usually. But they lack the skills to live life. And that's why it's becoming more and more important. You know, they talked about the soft skills things, but that is life skills. Can we really do life? I find that lots of people got the business plan. They know how to do business, but they don't have a life energy plan. And they run out of energy along the way. Halfway through life, what is halfway? Say 30, 40 years of age, the marriages pack up, relationships go for a loop, health-wise they are not well, heart attacks, strokes, and all those things start to happen. And that's because of not having a life energy plan. They just run like crazy. It's like the lion that go out and try to catch its prey. It must stop afterwards, lie down, sleep, rejuvenate, get the energy back so that he's ready for the next one. And that is what we, for some reason, we humans think we can just carry on. You just take another Red Bull or a Monster or a coffee or a thing to give you the energy. But we deplete our energy. And at the stage where you don't know it or least expect it, you burn out. You're down and out. You can't do anything. So it's very important from my point of view to educate people to understand how to manage their energy effectively. And that's what we are going to do. So looking forward to talk to you guys on the 24th of this month. So thank you, David. Thank you, Glenn. It was great being here.
Fantastic. Great. Well, you know, just to wrap up, we've got a few seconds left. I want to just first of all thank you for you to come and listen to us today. This obviously continues to be available on LinkedIn. So you can listen in or get someone else to listen in. The whole point of today's discussion was to actually make considerations for other people's struggles, especially in conversations with them, and to understand their needs before your own. And I think, you know, if you can just remember that, to understand, you know, where did they come? Where did they wake up this morning? Did they actually have something to eat? You know, have they had a coffee like you perhaps have had a coffee? Do they have a rusk? Silly things, you know. Did they battle to get to their place of work? Did their car actually get there safely? Did they have an incident on the way to the to work? You know, these are things that one needs to take into consideration, and by taking them into consideration, you show compassion. And by showing compassion, guess what happens? People feel closer to you, they start to trust you, and the conversation becomes a much, much more improved conversation. So please apply these principles. We've had a long discussion today and our discussion regarding them. And if you'd like to learn more about basically learning how to focus, because the workshop's really going to be talking about focus and focusing on actually getting and making sure that your 2024 is a really best year you ever had in your whole life. So come and join us at Casablanca. The link will be in the comments below this, and we are posting information on Vision 2024 on LinkedIn. Please go and follow that and follow us and come and join us next Thursday. We'll be here again. We'll be talking about another subject. I believe it's going to be about purpose. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And then on the 24th, obviously, that's in Casablanca. You can join the link there and come and join us. It'll be great to see you and to be part of your life for 2024 and to help you on your way to success. Thank you so much. Cheerio, everyone. Take care and have a blessed day. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Picture this. It's the dawn of 2024 and you're poised for success. Why? Because you've established your why. This isn't just a whim or a hobby. It's the passion that propels you forward, the core of your ambition. Next, you assess your current position. Where do you stand? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Honesty is key here. Now, envisage your destination. What do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Set those goals. Make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. With your destination locked, it's time to map out your plan. Break down your goals into manageable steps, then start stepping. Remember, action without reflection is aimless. Record your results, analyze your performance, and adjust your plan accordingly. The path to success in 2024 isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Take meaningful action, keep your eye on the prize, and continually strive for improvement. Here's to a successful 2024.